Imagine a world where humans lived for nearly 1,000 years, where giants walked among ordinary people, where the line between heaven and earth was so thin that angels regularly interacted with mankind, where a single man's faith could save all of creation from complete annihilation. This isn't fantasy. This isn't mythology. According to the Bible, this was reality before the great flood that changed everything forever. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most mysterious and fascinating periods in human history, a time so corrupt, so violent, and so spiritually compromised that God himself regretted creating humanity. Yet within this darkness, we'll discover stories of extraordinary faith, supernatural encounters, and divine interventions that shaped the course of all human history. Are you ready to uncover the secrets of the antediluvian world? Before we can understand life before the flood, we need to go back even further, to a time before Earth even existed. Picture this. You're witnessing the birth of the universe. Stars are singing, celestial beings are celebrating, and God is laying the very foundations of reality. The book of Job gives us this incredible glimpse. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? But here's where things get dark. Among these celebrating angels was one who would become humanity's greatest enemy. Lucifer, the most beautiful, most powerful of all created beings, was harboring a deadly ambition. He wanted God's throne. What happened next changed everything. Jesus himself witnessed it, describing it with these chilling words. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. This wasn't just a simple ejection from paradise. This was cosmic warfare, a rebellion that split the heavenly realm and set the stage for every conflict that would follow on earth. Think about this. Satan didn't fall alone. He convinced 1/3 of heaven's angels to join his rebellion. These weren't minor players. These were powerful, intelligent beings with supernatural abilities. And after their defeat, they were cast down to earth, seething with rage and plotting their revenge against God's newest creation, humanity. The stage was now set for the ultimate battle between good and evil, with earth as the battlefield and humans caught in the crossfire. Now let's fast forward to the Garden of Eden, humanity's first home. Adam and Eve weren't just the first humans. They were God's masterpiece, created in his own image and given dominion over all creation. They walked with God in the cool of the day, lived in perfect harmony with nature, and knew no shame, fear, or death. But Satan saw an opportunity. If he couldn't defeat God directly, he would corrupt God's most beloved creation. His strategy: attack humanity at their point of choice, their free will. The temptation wasn't just about fruit, it was about 3 devastating lies that still plague humanity today. First, doubt. Has God indeed said? Questioning God's word and authority. Second, denial. You will not surely die. Rejecting the consequences of sin. Third, deception. You will be like God. The ultimate pride that started Satan's own downfall. When Adam and Eve ate that forbidden fruit, they didn't just break a rule. They shattered the spiritual foundation of creation. Death entered the world. The perfect relationship between God and humanity was broken. Paradise was lost. But even in this darkest moment, God made a promise that would echo through the ages. The seed of the woman would crush the serpent's head. The first prophecy of redemption was spoken over the ruins of rebellion. Adam and Eve were banished from Eden, but their story was far from over. They had children, Cain and Abel, and here we see the first manifestation of the spiritual war that began in heaven. Both brothers knew about God, both brought offerings, but their hearts revealed 2 different approaches to worship. Abel brought his best, trusting in God's mercy. Cain brought whatever was convenient, trusting in his own works. When God accepted Abel's offering, but rejected Cain's, jealousy consumed the older brother. Despite God's personal warning, sin is crouching at your door and you must master it. Cain made a choice that would echo through history. He murdered his own brother, becoming the first human to shed innocent blood. This moment established two family lines that would define human history. The line of Cain, marked by pride, violence, and self-reliance. They became the innovators, the city builders, the inventors of music and metalworking. But they also became increasingly violent and godless. Cain's descendant Lamech boasted about his murders, introducing polygamy and celebrating revenge. The line of Seth, marked by humility, worship, and dependence on God. These were the people who called upon the name of the Lord. They maintained the memory of Eden and the promise of redemption. Here's what's fascinating. Both lines contributed to civilization, but only one maintained a relationship with God. Technology and culture advanced, but spiritual darkness grew alongside material progress. Now here's something that stretches our modern understanding. People before the flood lived extraordinarily long lives. We're not talking about making it to 100. We're talking about Adam living 930 years, Seth 912 years, and the champion longevity record holder, Methuselah, who lived 969 years. Why did people live so long? Several factors likely contributed. First, the world was young and pristine. There was no accumulation of genetic defects, no pollution, no processed foods. The human genome was still relatively pure from its divine creation. Second, the environment was different. Many believe the pre-flood world had a protective canopy that filtered harmful radiation and created a greenhouse effect, making the entire planet a paradise. Third, these long lifespans served God's purposes. With nearly a millennium to live, people could accumulate incredible knowledge and wisdom. They were living libraries, passing down direct accounts of creation and God's promises through hundreds of generations. But here's the darker side. These extended lifespans also meant extended opportunities for corruption. Imagine having 800 plus years to perfect evil, to develop systems of oppression, to corrupt others. The very gift that could have led to unprecedented wisdom instead became a tool for unprecedented wickedness. Among all these long-lived patriarchs, one man stands out, Enoch. He walked with God so closely that God simply took him, the first recorded rapture in human history. In a world growing increasingly dark, Enoch's life was a beacon of what humanity could be when fully surrendered to God. As the world's population exploded and spread across the earth, Satan launched his most audacious attack yet. If he couldn't destroy humanity outright, he would corrupt the human genome itself, making redemption impossible. Genesis 6 records one of the most controversial and disturbing events in biblical history. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Who were these sons of God? The evidence strongly suggests they were fallen angels, the same beings who had rebelled with Satan in heaven. These supernatural entities somehow took physical form and began interbreeding with human women. The result? The Nephilim, a race of giants, mighty warriors of renown who dominated the ancient world. The Hebrew word Nephilim literally means fallen ones. These weren't just tall people. They were hybrid beings with supernatural strength and abilities, born from the union of the spiritual and physical realms. This wasn't random cosmic horror. This was strategic warfare. Satan was attempting to pollute the human bloodline so thoroughly that the promised seed of the woman could never be born. If he could corrupt all of humanity with fallen angelic DNA, God's plan of redemption through a human Messiah would be impossible. The Nephilim became objects of worship and fear. They established themselves as the gods of ancient mythology, beings of incredible power who demanded sacrifice and obedience. They were the inspiration for every pantheon of gods in human history. But their presence did more than just corrupt the gene pool. They accelerated the moral collapse of civilization itself. By this point in pre-flood history, The world had become unrecognizable from God's original design. The Bible gives us this chilling assessment. The Lord saw that the wickedness of mankind was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. Let that sink in. Not mostly evil, not occasionally evil, only evil continually. Imagine a world where violence wasn't just common, it was celebrated, corruption wasn't hidden, it was institutionalized, truth wasn't valued, deception was the norm. The strong didn't protect the weak, they exploited them. Families weren't sanctuaries of love, they were battlegrounds of betrayal. Governments weren't systems of justice, they were machines of oppression. The Nephilim had become the ruling class, using their supernatural abilities to dominate and terrorize ordinary humans. Mystery religions flourished, with these giant beings demanding human sacrifice and perverse worship practices. The knowledge that fallen angels brought with them, advanced technology, occult practices, forbidden secrets, had been used to create a civilization that was both incredibly advanced and utterly depraved. This wasn't just moral decline, this was spiritual warfare made manifest. Every human institution had been corrupted. Every natural relationship had been perverted. The very image of God in humanity was being systematically destroyed, and God, looking down on his creation, felt something that should shake us to our core: regret. The Lord regretted that he had made mankind on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. But even in the deepest darkness, God's grace found a way to shine. In the midst of global corruption, one man stood apart: Noah. Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Think about what this means. In a world where everyone else had hearts that were only evil continually, Noah maintained his integrity. While giants ruled the earth and fallen angels corrupted humanity, Noah walked with God. While violence filled the earth and wickedness reached its peak, Noah remained blameless. This wasn't just moral superiority. This was supernatural preservation. Noah represented the last uncorrupted link in the chain that would lead to humanity's ultimate redemption. Through him, the promise made in Eden would survive the coming judgment. God came to Noah with a plan that seemed absolutely insane: build a massive ark, prepare for a worldwide flood, and preserve the seed of all life on earth. For potentially decades, Noah worked on this project, while the world around him mocked and ignored the coming judgment. Can you imagine the ridicule? Can you picture the doubt that must have crept in during those long years of construction? But Noah's faith never wavered. He built the ark exactly as God commanded, gathered the animals as instructed, and waited for God's timing. The story of life before the flood isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror reflecting our own times. Jesus himself said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." We live in an age of incredible technological advancement paired with moral decline. We see the same patterns: violence celebrated, truth rejected, the powerful oppressing the weak, and spiritual darkness masquerading as enlightenment. But just as God preserved Noah and his family through the greatest judgment in human history, he offers the same salvation today. The ark that saved 8 souls points forward to the cross that can save anyone who believes. The question isn't whether judgment is coming. The question is whether we'll have the faith of Noah to prepare for it, warn others about it, and trust God's provision through it. What will your legacy be when the floods of judgment rise? Will you be found faithful like Noah, or will you be swept away like the rest of the antediluvian world? The choice, like it was for every person in Noah's day, is yours.